Hi, I'm Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I have degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, and a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy. In this video, I'm not seeking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. Hi, everybody. Happy Sunday. Today is going to be a rabbit hole. It is going to be a bit of a wild ride. So let me say hi to some folks. Hi, Adric. Thank you for coming in. Always first. Yay. Hi to Snowman. Thank you for being in here. Hi to Nina. Thank you for being here. And thank you, Snowman, for the reminder for people to hit the like button. So I don't know if people saw this. There is a new syndrome called demon face syndrome. That's not the actual name of it. The actual name is really hard. Again, I have my notes, like I always do. Prosopometamorphopsia. But it's being called demon face syndrome, which I work with a lot of people who have schizophrenia, who have hallucinations. And so immediately I was like, is this a new mental health diagnosis or what is this? Hi, Adrian. Thank you for being in here. So I looked at it and it's a visual disorder. And I'm like, seeing demons? So made me think about it. And then as I'm getting into it and I'm, deep diving things. In fact, later I'm probably going to give a woo-woo warning because wow, this goes a ways. This is a ways. But okay. So first let's look at this article. Okay. Let's look at this. Okay. It's like staring at demons. Let me get to where I can get to. I have so many things pulled up on my dashboard right now. It's crazy. Okay. So now I've lost myself. Here I am. All right. So it's like staring at demons. Meet a man who lives with a disturbing condition. Now, what's interesting is this image here, it's showing what they see, right? So the one on the left would be like the normal face, and the one on the right is how they see it. Now, I'm looking at it going, it's not behaving like a normal visual distortion. For instance, when you look at the demon face from the front, it's like things are pulled out to the left and the right, right? But when you looked at it from the side, the ear is pulled out, but not the nose. And the side of the face, the side of the mouth is pulled out, but again, not the nose. So it goes right, but not left. Like the forehead's not sticking out. Anyway, so already I was thinking, this doesn't act like a normal visual distortion, right? But it's saying it's a visual distortion right here. So it says it's like staring at demons. Imagine waking up one morning, suddenly everybody in the world looks like a creature in a horror movie. So that's yet another thing. This isn't a visual distortion that comes over time. It's like you go to bed, you wake up in the morning, and some people that you look at look like demons, right? So they're calling it PMO, but it's colloquially called demon face syndrome. And they're talking not just shape, but texture, position, color, but the rest of their body parts are undisturbed. You see that there? The rest of their body is undisturbed. So again, it's not following what a typical visual disturbance looks like. Okay. So this guy helped make these pictures so people could see, right? But he says for a while, that it's like this, but the distortion is actually moving and contorting and making gestures. Wow. So here's another one, right? Where you can see how it's distorting the facial images, right? So they talk about a disorder called face blindness, which the borders on a mental health diagnosis. I actually have a book by Oliver Sacks that was about a man with face blindness, and it's called "The Man Who Mistook His Wife for His Hat." It's a pretty interesting book. Right. So they're saying 1 in 50 people may have face blindness. Maybe. I'm one of those people that remembers people's faces and never remembers people's names. So there are basic distortions, right? The lines in the face, the stretching of the eyes and mouth, the pointy ears, but the size and shape of a person's face or head and how they move can be different and change just how distorted they might be. I mean, right? So let's go down here. Again, they're saying this is not a mental health issue. This is a visual disorder. But look here. Okay. 2 patients, while standing in front of the mirror, saw one eye popping out of its socket and slithering down the cheek. Okay, guys, this does not sound like a visual disorder. I mean, tell me if I'm wrong here, right? So the entire face of another person appears misshapen like a funhouse mirror. So again, it's not every person you look at either. Okay. One eye became a ghastly staring hole, cheekbone, a cavity, had a teeth on the upper lip, often had 2 ears, described faces like clocks in a Dalai Lama painting, which is like the melting, right? Or kaleidoscopically changing, right? Still others have seen faces morph into dragons or a fish head, or ears pop out of the top of people's heads. They see shortened arms attached to faces, eyes leaving the skulls and rotating in front of it, or third eyes in the middle of people's forehead. This woman saw dragons beginning as a child. Okay, so they're saying there's 81 cases of demon face syndrome. Okay, they're saying there's likely more people with the condition. They started a website. They've heard from 80 people so far. There's little knowledge, right? So I want to go down here when they talk about what they did to treat it. Okay. So this person said such distortion could be triggered by a specific area of the brain called the fusiform gyrus. Fusiform gyrus, which is responsible for face perception, object recognition, and reading. Light distorts, so the solution she thought might be finding a particular color, and keep that in mind because we're going down that rabbit hole, or intensity of light that might reduce the symptoms, right? So they did the light bulbs. They did a video call, went through a whole bunch of tests, right? Which was interesting. So they moved the light to green. The distortion was gone, and he just sat there and bawled like a baby. So green light takes away this visual this visual disorder. So then he gets glasses that are green, and his whole life is better, right? He got to meet his granddaughters. Everybody looked normal. Everything was great. They duplicated the benefits of the green lenses, which reduces the distortion. Doesn't see it on 2D images. It's only when they're looking at people. Okay. So this sent me on an entire rabbit hole, guys. All right. Post Botox and plastic surgery, Adrian says. All right. Leon's in here. Leon, we're talking about demon face syndrome. Okay. So let me take that off. Okay. So if anybody's like me, they're going to be like, there's a brand new disorder that is this controversial. They're saying it's a visual disorder, but green lenses make it go away. So I don't know about you guys, if you guys remember the Aura glasses, like you could have this special glass and you could see people's auras. And on social media a while back, it was like if you hold up this piece of glass and then people would see UFOs. By the way, that's not real. It made me think of that. And I'm like, green lenses, green, because generally the middle of where we can see, and we live in a blue lighted earth, is in the blue green. Now we can see violet to red, right? Like that's our light spectrum, but in the middle is the blue green, right? Nina says, go down the rabbit hole. Oh, I am. I'm taking all of you with me. We're all going. Okay. So first thing I want to talk about, I remembered a little bit about this and I had to, and guys, this is going to push the limits of me being able to use StreamYard because I have so many things to show you that it's, oh, why can I not share screen? All right, hold on. Oh, it's not going to let me. Somebody help me. The share screen option. Dang it. Wait, what is this one? Oh, because I got to stop that one. I got to stop that because that's the green one. All right. I'm going to get there. I'm going to get there. I promise. There we go. Gosh, I knew I could do it. Okay. So, Great Wave, Planetary. All right. Listen, I'm just going to have to tell you about this. So it took me back to when they first started making night vision goggles. Okay. This was back in the late 60s, early 70s. And they wanted to use them for the war in Vietnam. They wanted to have night vision. And so they were working through all these things of ways to make night vision. And so they first came up with something called the Starlight Scope. Okay. So even though I can't show you the image, you guys look up the Starlight Scope. So they came up with a Starlight Scope, right? And it was using a red spectrum. Now we know, if anybody's looked at night vision, you know that now what's used, it's a green spectrum. Everything looks kind of greenish, right? But when they first made it, they used the red spectrum to be able to use night vision. Now, the night vision goggles worked well. People were able to see in the dark, okay? The problem was that they started seeing demons. So you have these military people out here, you know, in a war zone, and they're putting on these night vision goggles, and the longer that they had them on, they started seeing demonic type things around in the dark. Because could you imagine? Like, you're at war, you're trying to stay away from the enemy, you're trying not to get killed. Your commanding officers tell you to put on these goggles and you start seeing demons everywhere. Like, come on. So they had to go back to the drawing board and use a different spectrum of light for night vision. And that's where they got the green. Okay. So again, we have where certain people can see demons, and then we put green glasses on them. They can't see the demons. Here's the woo-woo warning. I'm going to stop right there for 1 second. Let me talk to YouTube. YouTube, everything I'm talking about is just for entertainment purposes only. I don't believe anything I'm saying. This is all just funny ha-has. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Probably most of this is not even real, even though it's on the internet. Okay, thank you. So I want to tell YouTube that because it gets deep. Okay. So now we have two things where if we look at things green, we're not seeing demons. Okay. So, Snowman also says, lead us down the rabbit hole. This is, whew, you guys are going to get inner vision to my rabbit holing too. Okay. All right. So now we know that the green makes it to where you can't see demons, but the red is where we do see demons. So if we look at the visible light spectrum, again, like I talked about, and since I'm not able to pull up images that I thought I was going to, red is on one end, violet's on the other end. We got the blue greens in the middle. Okay. And again, we live in a blue-green atmosphere, the way we see things. This is generally in the middle. This is generally what we're looking at is through a blue-green kind of spectrum of light. Okay. Hi, Timekeeper. Thank you for coming in. Now, what that is, when we look at the visible spectrum, again, it's red on one side, it's violet on the other. When it comes to, that's part of an electromagnetic spectrum, okay, which is way longer. We only see 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, in the same way that, like, we can't see the entire Earth because it's way too big, and we can't see things that are microscopic because it's too little. Like, our eyes just only perceive and see what they can see. And as far as, the color of things, we have a visible spectrum where our eyeballs can see it. And then again, that's 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. A lot is outside of that. So it made me think, what if, Leon, I don't know if I said hi to you, but hi to you, right? Good to see you. And Compassionate and Callous, thank you for coming in. Red makes kind of sense why people would see demon. Yeah, it's like maybe that's why, like, in media, demonic things are painted red. Or like when we let hell is red. I don't know. Okay. But this is what it made me think is if we can't see anything outside of the spectrum, but when we get to that far end of red, that's as far as we can see. There's a boundary there, right? So I'm not saying demons themselves are real or not real. But what if we're seeing beyond that boundary in some way? And by changing stuff to green, we're pulling it back from that boundary. Maybe we are just seeing things that exist slightly beyond that boundary. So yes, I went there. There's the woo-woo warning, right? But again, I can't see microscopic things and they exist. So why would I say that things don't exist outside the visible spectrum of light that I can see. It's so tiny, right? That doesn't make sense, right? So if I'm thinking things like demonic things that would be scary if you saw them are on that boundary or just outside the boundary of red on one end, then does that mean if we go to the violet end, we can see things that are more angelic? Okay. So let's talk dicyanin. Has anybody heard of dicyanin glasses, or the blue glasses that you can supposedly see things through? Let me, I'm going to bring up this article. Let me find it. This one. Okay. Dicyanin glasses, these blue, they're referred to as blue glasses, and everybody talks to them as these special blue glasses where you can see things through. Now, if anybody's actually studied dicyanin, it's purple. It's more violet, or, possibly indigo, depending on how you're looking at it, but they're actually not blue. They are purple. They are violet. So now, why are these things a thing, right? Because if we're thinking, all right, if demons or whatever are on the red side, then angelic things would be on the left side, right? If we're looking through here. So, if you guys don't know about Museum of Tarot, this guy, he is amazing. So he takes woo-woo things and studies them. He finds the ancient manuscripts of things. He follows the recipe of alchemy to see if it does something. It's so interesting. And this is the only website where if you want dicyanin goggles, you can buy them there. Right here, dicyanin aura goggles. So he has this video, which I'm not going to play because copyright, right? So from some of us, we're under the impression that they had outlawed the dicyanin goggles, but apparently they didn't. They just super restricted it when, well, we'll just say the government restricted it. I thought my mouse just stopped working. Okay. So he's going through this social media post to dispel some myths, right? So the person says, the military accidentally invented night vision goggles that could see into the astral realm. Okay, well, he's conflating two things there. So the military invented the red night vision goggles, right, that saw demons. But Walter Kilner did invent these goggles with dicyanin, which is not blue, it's purple, which he then created these goggles, and he didn't give them to the military. So, but again, there's a lot of things out in the world where we get stuff wrong, right? Now, what Dr. Kilner was trying to do was to see the aura or the energy that the body puts off, right? Because that's not something that some people say they can see auras, right? But not everybody can see them. He was trying to see the energy that's around a body to see if it could help with like diagnosing and things, right? But as people began to wear them, some strange things happened, right? So again, dicyanin is not blue. It's purple, like I told you. It's not made from crystals and was not used in the starlight scopes. Okay. It does get mixed up, right? So this guy, again, Museum of Tarot, he's on YouTube, literally bought Kilner's original manual and made it, and now he shares them. And the other thing that he does is he goes around the world and take that off. he goes around the world and films through Dicyanin, different places, like different like burial mounds and the pyramids of Giza and all these different places that supposedly have like spiritual significance, because the Dicyanin goggles do work. You can see energy that is coming off of things. And he's taken these photos and he has these photos up and they're pretty cool. Like there's one place where you can see that there's energy coming off of it. And supposedly it's just, a bunch of stones on top of each other. Nobody was inside, but you could see energy. And then there was like this beam that went straight out of the top. It was super cool. It was super neat. So you can see auras or the energy or some people call it chi, whatever it is. You can see the electromagnetic energy around human beings. You can see auras with these Dicyanin goggles. Now, there are stories out there about, let me take some things off. There are stories out there about people who had Dicyanin goggles who, if they kept them on long enough, they could start to see almost like ghosts or apparitions, like people walking around, somebody coming in the room, somebody walking out of a room, somebody walking through a wall, almost the way like people describe ghosts. Now, Museum of Tarot says that's bunk. That never happened to me, but those stories are out there. Okay. But what we do know is that, okay, so on the violet end, we can see energy and chi and aura and, power, those kind of things. A lot of these pictures look almost like the aurora borealis. Some of it's kind of feathery, some of it's wavy. It looks a lot like the aurora borealis. Okay. Snowman says the fight with technology continues. Okay. Oh, Leon says on top of those soldiers being on drugs too, the stories my great uncle told me about that war, and I used to go hang out at the BA in San Antonio too. Those stories are amazing. Yeah. Yeah. So, and also, the military from the 50s was testing LSD on soldiers and things like that. So, sure, that was not helpful. Okay. So, we're in the rabbit hole now, guys. Because again, is this a visual disorder or does this have something to do with what we can and cannot perceive in the visual light spectrum? So it makes you wonder, does the government know about this stuff? Because originally Kilner, it wasn't goggles that he was using. It was a photo filter he made with 2 glass plates with Dicyanin in between. It was a photo filter so he could take a picture of a person and map the aura, the energy, the life force, right? So, I'm going to go deep when I start pulling up. That, not the gateway, this one. Okay. So, in the CIA, they have their own little magazine called Covert Action. And these little magazines, I'm trying to make this bigger so it's not cut off. I don't want this thing on the side, but apparently it's going to do it. Okay. So this little magazine goes out, right? You get your little subscription if you're in the CIA, and it has information in there. And they're classified for periods of time. Okay. So this one came out June 1980. It was released in 2010. Okay. So I want to take myself off of here. Am I still muted? I didn't know I muted myself. It doesn't say I'm muted. It doesn't say I'm muted. Okay, can you all hear me now? Oh my God. Shout out to Marcus Aurelius. At least I didn't go that far. Okay, so let me back up. I don't know how I got muted because it didn't say I was muted on the thing, but I muted and unmuted myself. So I think it was when I removed myself from up here. So, okay. So, yes, the government knows about all of this stuff, right? Because they have Kirlian photography in here, which came out of Russia, which is based on the same stuff that Kilner used. Because, like, when NASA takes pictures of outer space, they use the same filter technology, right? They're not using a Canon camera out in outer space. They're taking a picture of the energy of things using these same type of filters, okay? Because Kilner had, this was a photography filter to take pictures of energy. So, yes, the government knows about it for sure. All right, I'm going to take that off. The demon face folks are trying not to be exposed. At least I didn't do it that long. Okay. All right. So, okay. Also, another way that we know that the government knows about it is, I don't know if you guys have seen this, the Gateway Project. Okay. Let me make sure real quick while I'm going through this and I can't see the chat. Can everybody still hear me okay? Hi, Larry Nero, and hi, y'all, Borgen. Okay, can y'all still hear me? Somebody put a 1 in the chat if you can hear me. I don't want to lose it again. Maybe not. All right, thank you, Adric. Now I got to get the article pulled back up again. Okay. So this is the Gateway Project. So this is part of stuff that the CIA did. If you guys have ever watched Stranger Things, the first season of Stranger Things was based on this work. Okay, so this right here is an analysis and assessment of the Gateway Project or process. So the Gateway Project, you can actually download everything that they did. It is hundreds of pages. It is way more than giving soldiers LSD. They were trying to find how to teleport, how to telekinesis, how to, send your consciousness across an astral plane to spy on people. And the interesting thing is they found a lot of stuff. It wasn't just that all of it was bunk. They actually proved a lot of things. Okay. So in the Gateway Project, which was 1958, they used it to assess the Qui-Gon Chi, again, the aura. Okay. This is a great overview of the Gateway Project. Okay. Because it's got just little synopsis of the things they were doing, right? So here's all the information on what they found out about hypnosis, transcendental meditation. Like he's even got some diagrams here on how you sense things, where you sense them from, what kind of things they use, Kundalini psychosis, right? They found that. Biofeedback work, hemisync. Hemisync is a big thing in Gateway. lasers, frequencies, resonance. Again, when you hear people say everything is frequency, the government knows that. They already know that. They figured that out back in the 50s, that all of reality is based on frequency and resonance, brain stimulation. They even use the word matrix, holographic matrix, in this synopsis, that all of reality is a holographic matrix. So they've known for a long time. Consciousness and energy. This is where they can take pictures of the Qui-Gon and holograms, that everything we perceive is a hologram. Talk about that. How the part encodes the whole. There we go. The consciousness matrix. Right? The universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. This is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. Okay, they've known that for a long time. The brain in phase, self-cognition. Again, when they're talking about hemisync and things like that, what does the right hemisphere do? What does the left hemisphere do? The left is the computer software. The right, perceives the holographic images that were given. Time-space dimensions, they figured out how to have portals. See, intervening dimensions. Subatomic particles, again, they got to go into the quantum. Dimensions in between. Haven't we heard that recently from an actor about the dimensions in between and how it relates to space? Okay, how time works, how timeline works. Right? This is all stuff that the CIA knows, figured out, experimented on. Out-of-body experiences. Now, this is where they look at. Shout out to flat earthers, but this is where they figure out that the Big Bang Theory doesn't necessarily hold a lot of weight based on everything that they figured out, all of this science that they figured out for years and years and years, is that everything is actually more like a torus field, which here, there's a picture. This is a torus field where, like, if you were to take a picture of all the energy around our reality right here, Earth, whatever, it is swirling almost like a figure 8, right? So it creates a torus field. So time and space moves around. And again, things that we can't see. Quality of consciousness. There's a bigger picture. Okay. Almost like we're the nucleus of a cell. So anyway, interestingly enough, yes, the government knows about this stuff and they've known about it, for 50 years. Okay. The link to that paper so I can read it later. Yeah. I will once the live's done and I load it up. I could put links for everything in there again. But honestly, this stuff has been unreleased by the CIA. You can Google. I mean, I'm not telling you have to. I'll put up the link. It's way easier, but you can download the entire Gateway Project manual from the CIA because it was declassified. It talks about, in Gateway Project, they talk about conversations that they've had with other entities outside of our visible light spectrum, like actual conversations with entities. It's like, it's no big deal. Conversations they've had with aliens, information that they got, like, for years, they've known this stuff. So when the government comes out recently and they're like, yeah, guys, there are UFOs, it's like, we know, you told us. Okay. Okay, so Snowman says, "Oh, Maggie exposing secrets one at a time. Keep doing it." Um, Leon says they're trying to make it to the fourth and fifth dimensions. Yes, absolutely. So, government knows about this. They've known about it since the 50s, right? And again, like they're talking about in that little magazine that went out to just CIA, like you're a CIA operative, you just do your little subscription and get your $2 magazine, and it's classified information, and they're talking about the same stuff that's going on in Gateway. So that was in the 80s. So everybody in the CIA knew about this stuff. Like, it was not shocking in any way. Yeah, there's entities walking around that we can't see. Yeah, totally know that. The rest of us are like, I don't know if I want to know that. Okay. I mean, Nina said that she did, but I remember, like, as a kid, you could buy aura glasses and then you couldn't. And you could not get a hold of dicyanin. Okay. So, interestingly, to this day, dicyanin on a commercial side, dicyanin is most used in DVDs and CDs, which I realize we're a bit past DVDs and CDs, but DVDs and CDs use dicyanin to create images. Okay. NASA uses dicyanin to create photo filters. That's who's using dicyanin, right? Okay. So we have, Timekeeper says, and that's the information that they released, right? Like, what have they redacted? I know when they first released Gateway a couple years ago, there was a page missing. And if I'm not mistaken, it was page 23, because everybody went on a tear to get page 23. One of the things they also figured out was, like, you could activate parts of yourself that could heal itself through number combinations. Isn't that, like, it just sounds so crazy and like a movie, but no, they've known this since the 50s. They've been using this stuff since the 50s. They've been interacting with other entities. They've been, like, since the 50s. It's all just same day to them, right? Okay, so that's the pattern, right? Though, is that on one end of the visible spectrum, around the red, we can see demonic type things. On the other end, where it's violet, it's purple, we can see energy, right? That's what we can see. Okay. But the green or blue is where we can see neither, right? Now, the screens that we look at all the time, our phones, our computers, our TVs, all of those things use the blue spectrum, right? Which is why you can now buy blue blocker glasses, because the blue spectrum causes disruptions in your circadian rhythm. It impairs your sleep quality. It increases risk of depression, cancer, diabetes, heart disease, obesity, and eye problems. Wait, we just circled back around to vision impairments in the blue, right? So, but you can buy blue blocker glasses if you look at screens a lot. When I order my glasses, I get blue blocker on them, so that it doesn't do all of that stuff. Okay. So what this gets me to is, why are we talking about seeing demons now? If we know that they've known about it since the 50s, and at the very least the 70s, when they made the red night vision goggles, right? Why now? right? So in that article, they talked about that not all of the people who developed that demon face syndrome had tumors. So maybe they'd had radiation, because radiation is on the electromagnetic spectrum. I wish I could pull up this image, but I'm going to talk about it since I can't pull it up. Okay. So on the electromagnetic spectrum, you have on one end, which is low frequency, non-ionizing. Okay. So that's like power lines. And as it goes up all the way to high frequency and ionizing, it goes power lines, radio and TV waves, cell phones, microwaves, infrared devices, visible light, which is like light bulbs and stuff, ultraviolet light, like tanning beds and stuff like that, X-rays, and then radiation. So you think about the world that we live in now, there is something called energy pollution, where there's just so much electromagnetic pollution from all of those things. Now you think about, that's all on the electromagnetic spectrum, which is also where our vision is on the electromagnetic spectrum. Visible light is in there. So we have all of these things that are polluting our vision, right? Because we see using the electromagnetic spectrum. All of this stuff is in the world now where it wasn't before. So it could be from electromagnetic pollution. It could be from people's being exposed to radiation. So it could be from that, but told you I'm going there today. So where else do we get ultraviolet light from? The sun. Okay. The sun. Another place where we get ultraviolet light. So if people haven't been following it, the sun has been doing some odd things the last couple of years. We've had a lot more solar flares. The sun has been much more active. And because, again, it's ultraviolet light, it's all on that electromagnetic spectrum, it affects electronics. But doesn't that mean it also affects our vision? Because we use the electromagnetic spectrum to see. That's how our eyes use to see, right? So we've also had solar eclipses and things like that. So it's got some articles over here on the side about the sun, but this talks about coordinating the government's response to potential disruptions for electronics. Electronics. That's what we're concerned about. But let's think about how it affects our vision when the sun has been super active, right? So could be radiation, could be electromagnetic pollution, could be the sun messing with our vision. But something that I think about working in mental health is people with schizophrenia have been having visions of things that other people can't see for a very long time. I've said before, and I would always say again, sometimes there are people with schizophrenia who do not seem mentally ill, and they will say things like, that person looks like an angel, but that person's a demon, and I'm going to stay away from them. They will talk about seeing demons. Okay. So then I looked up, I'm like, how can I say they're not just because I don't see it, right? So I looked up, do people with schizophrenia have vision problems? So again, it's an image, so I can't show it. Um, Schizophrenia can affect vision in several ways. People with schizophrenia have low visual acuity. They may have higher corneal temperature. People with schizophrenia blink faster than people without. Schizophrenia can also affect perception of contrast and motion, control of eye movements, detection of visual contours, and recognition of faces or facial expressions. Now, isn't that what they said about demon face syndrome? That it was connected, but not the same thing. It was connected to facial recognition and that there were distortions and motion. So could it be that people who have been diagnosed, not all, obviously, but some people who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia actually can just see outside of our visual electromagnetic spectrum? Outside of that, remember, again, it's 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can see. So the point is, if you look through all of this stuff, especially what the government has already released, and good point, there's probably more. It's highly likely, and they've already proven that there are entities and things outside of the visible light spectrum. The same with like some things are microscopic and things like we just can't see it with. If I get muted one more time, it is doing the weirdest stuff. This is so weird. Okay. So we've also had recently the aurora borealis, right? I can't pull up pictures, but we've recently had the aurora borealis, right? And the aurora borealis, where it's normally way up north, people can see it way up north. It came all the way down into little United States. People were seeing it in Scotland. People, like it spread way, way out. And nobody had ever heard of that before. And then scientists, the government, everybody tried to tell you, oh yeah, this happens sometimes. Nobody can remember this ever happening before. But what color are the lights in the aurora borealis? Oh, thank you, Nina. Put it in there. Indigo Flow says he works with people with schizophrenia every day. Yeah. Y'all Borgen says time to go back to work. Maggie, I appreciate your work. I'll have to catch up on your videos. Hope you get your super chat soon. Gosh, me too. It's the watch time that's the problem now. Like I'm at 450 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Yeah, it's free. Got to get to that 500, and then you also have to get to 3,000 watch hours, and I'm a little over 1,000. So that's the holdup. Excuse me. So we've had the aurora borealis. It's becoming, it was big, right? Some people think this is just a one-time thing. The government says, oh, this has happened before, it's no big deal. Other people say it's going to be happening more often. But when you look at the aurora borealis, which is essentially plasma in the atmosphere, it's electromagnetic. It's green and red. Interesting, right? Interesting. And it looks an awful lot like when you look at energy through dicyanin glasses. Now, not the color, because again, dicyanin is a purpley color, like a dark purpley color. So things look purpley. Um, but the way the energy is very, we have green, which is where we can't, that stops us from being able to see outside of the spectrum. I just had an idea. Wonder if we need to get these green glasses for people who have schizophrenia. I'm going to think on that for a little bit. Um, but this red light and a lot of pictures that we saw of the aurora borealis, as spread out as it was, there was a lot of red. Now, normally you see pictures of the aurora borealis, it looks pretty green, occasionally red. There was a lot more red. So possibly there are things, again, the government knows things that we don't, just across the board. Everybody can accept that. Possibly they're coming out with this syndrome because our electromagnetic light spectrum may be changing, and more people are going to be seeing demon faces. And so they want to let people know this is a visual thing. You just get you some green glasses and you're going to be okay. Maybe that's what they're talking about. So that's the end of my rabbit hole. But I did put on this live open panel because I like talking about this kind of stuff, especially because some of it is hard to accept. But then when you look at what the CIA and the government has put out, like they've proven this a long time ago. It's a Tuesday to them to talk about aliens or entities outside of our visual range or telekinesis or things like that, the body healing itself. That is a Tuesday to them. We're all still trying to wrap our minds around it, and they're like, oh yeah, UFOs are real. I was talking to Fred the other day. He's from, this other planet. It's no big deal to them. Another interesting thing I found out is that there are many, many, many countries across the globe that already knew and accepted that there were aliens that have come here a long time ago, because when the aliens would come, the government would tell the people about it rather than hiding it. So that's another thing that it's difficult as an American to accept. But we live in a day of information, right? And like Cat Williams says, this is the day when, this is the time everything's going to come out. Adrian says, everyone needs to watch the old movie, They Live. It sounds scary. Indigo Flow says, they told me all kinds of things. The longer you work with them, the more open you become, although you understand their diagnosis. Right? Absolutely. It's like, yes, they have a mental health diagnosis, especially because let's say if somebody did have demon face syndrome and had no other forms of psychosis, if you're dealing with that, it's going to make you feel like you're nuts. Like it is going to start affecting you, and you're going to develop some pretty severe trauma, at least around that, But you also do have to be open to, just because I don't see it and experience doesn't mean it's not real for you, or, heck, after today, maybe some of it is real. Leon says, we cannot even see the star. What are they hiding? The electricity went off where I lived 2 weeks ago and I could see the stars again. My son was real happy. Oh, you know what that reminds me of is that recently the moon disappeared. The moon was gone for like many days. People across the world could not see the moon. And then when you Google it, it comes up and says, oh yeah, every so often the moon just disappears for a while and we can't see it. Does anybody else remember that in your lifetime? I feel like we're being gaslit. Like I never, ever, and I love the moon, right? So I look at the moon. I think the moon is beautiful. I don't ever remember the moon disappearing before. But now it's just a thing that happens, just like with the aurora borealis. It just happens sometimes, Hi, Ian. Thanks for being in. Oh, your mom said she could see demon faces years ago. It's interesting. should get her some glasses with green glass and see if that helps. It could help. Don't know. But I'm going to put the link in the chat because I love these kind of conversations. So if anybody else wants to come up and talk about it, I think it would be great. Okay. Adrian says, y'all weirdness normies out. It's all new, right? Like, that's what the part that blows my mind is that the government's known about stuff that's like blowing our minds now. We're like, wait, what? Telekinesis is real? And they're like, we knew that like 50 years ago. So, my God, what do they know now? You know what I mean? We're just catching up with things that were going on in the 50s and 60s. This is what they're releasing now. What can they do now? That's almost a scary thought. But yeah, if anybody wants to come up and talk conspiracy theory with me or weird woo-woo stuff, I told you guys that sometime I'm going to start talking metaphysics and woo-woo stuff. Oh, Leon. Leon's at work. He can't come up. Dang it. I know you would have a lot to offer. Okay. Well, here's the thing. This will not be the last time I'm positive that I will go down a rabbit hole. I generally try to keep my channel to mental health things, like Wednesdays, it's more like therapeutic type things that we can do that I can teach you and you can do on your own or like simultaneously with each other. Sundays, I try to keep it more to, topics, especially things that are used in the wrong way. It's more mental health informative. I try to be on Sundays, but this one was, it was delicious because they're taking something that used to be labeled a mental health disorder, saying it's a visual problem. And then I'm kind of, then it starts to get into a rabbit hole of, I don't know about this. All right. Ian's coming up. All right. Ian, it looks like you're muted. You can unmute. Here, no, you're going to have to unmute yourself to come up.
Yeah.
All right, Ian, take it away. What do you got?
I wasn't here for the whole thing, but I really just towards the end understood because I was like demon faces. And then towards the end you kind of explained what that is. So, but yeah, then you added the light spectrum to it, which I guess kind of made sense. That light and the electromagnetic spectrum go hand in hand, and so that would be obvious. So when you were saying that, what I was thinking about is that okay, does that mean that their ability to see through walls, the technology to see through walls and buildings, that must be based on what you're saying. It seems like okay, that seems like that's true. That no longer are there. Is it through direct sight they can see through electromagnetic imaging? So where they don't need a direct line of sight.
That's so interesting because I've looked at some of that technology. And this is public stuff. Like some of the companies who are doing that technology, they use a home's Wi-Fi as the frequency. But it makes me think the same thing because again, if like dicyanin, something like that can make out energy, the outlines of people, the energy, then couldn't you use something like that to see through walls? I mean, there would be energy in the walls sort of if you had like electrical lines, but essentially it's just, sheetrock, wood, those kind of things. So would you be able to see energies walking around and moving? That's an interesting thought. That may be they may be using that a similar type of technology for that.
Yeah, I thought I saw the article that came out about them being able to use they're using Wi-Fi to was as far as what you just said. I thought I saw some
Mhm.
information about that actually
Yeah.
came out.
Yeah, and that's like I said, that's public knowledge. That's not like, woo-woo conspiracy stuff. Like the companies actually came out and said, "This is how we're doing it, and we can see what's happening inside your house, and we use your home
Right,
Wi-Fi."
right. Right, right, you're right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'm like, if they're doing that, I'm sure they've gone beyond it because there's always what they tell us. They always have like 10 times more than what they're telling us, especially when in terms of technology. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay, Leon says Wednesdays would have been the perfect day for this conversation. Religion, philosophy, and science has always been 110% connected, in my opinion. I totally agree. Um, it's kind of like for people who have been in my shadow work Wednesday, we're going level 2 is pretty highfalutin, but it is based in the fact that math mathematicians were always philosophers. Metaphysicians were philosophers. Like people who were philosophers are the ones, Pythagoras was a philosopher. And so it was the philosophers that came up with a lot of the knowledge that we know and have now. And so I totally agree with you. It's all connected. And those philosophers, as they were trying to prove the reality of things, were also trying to figure out, was there a God, and how do you find God and how do you interact with God? So yeah, they're definitely all connected. Y'all Borgen says Biden is a lizard person. Heck, you know what? I don't know. Because again, you guys, there is the former Prime Minister of Defense for Canada several years ago. I want to say, gosh, it could be even 15 years ago, um, presented at their parliament on UFOs. And this was part of Canada being more transparent with their constituency, their citizens. And when he was presenting, he gave it all. He was like, there's 4 types of aliens, there's the grays, there's the reptilians. Can't remember the other ones. I can't remember the other ones. But he laid it all out, like when they came, um, how the United States like gate kept some stuff. Like he gave the whole story. And this was like 15 years ago. So they always give us a little bit in Hollywood movies. Yeah, and I think people are figuring that out more and more, is that it's almost like, The Simpsons and media and things like, it's like it's weird when you look back because you'll see that this information came out in the form of fiction in a movie, or a TV show or something, and then we find out it's real and it's been around since that came out. So that's why more and more and more people are saying, for some reason, they have to tell us about what they're doing before they do it. I don't know what that's about. I mean, karma, I don't know what it is. But people are really noticing that now. Yeah.
So with all that being said, is it in terms of frequency? Does frequency also affect matter in terms of density? So I
Well,
don't know if you've actually looked into that, whether or not what we
yeah.
see is actually, like ghosts. Are these beings actually able to interact on the physical level to the degree that matter exists here?
Well, I would think if we go with that Dyson glasses could see ghosts, let's say, what's on that violet end of the spectrum are these bigger waves. It's a higher frequency. The violet side, it's a higher frequency. The red side is a more dense frequency. So it would be more attached to matter, right? Because the more density of the frequency, that's how it creates matter. So like on a quantum level, when you get down to the quantum level, nothing is solid. It's all just little things interacting with each other. And the lower the frequency, they're not moving as much. And so we perceive the matter to be dense because there's not that movement. We can't displace, right? Like in water, we can displace water with our hands because it's vibrating at a frequency that we can displace. Things that vibrate at a more dense frequency, we can't displace with our own hands. There has to be more of a force to displace because they're packed in there and they're vibrating at a very low vibration. So, and that kind of reminds me when we were talking about, we hear things in media and then it becomes true. I can remember back in my childhood, people talking about frequency and those kind of things, and they were considered part of the woo-woo community. They were, the metaphysics, and they say all kinds of crazy things. And then quantum physics comes out saying the same exact things that these metaphysicians had been saying my whole life. But that's at a quantum level, right? So things would not have density beyond our visual range. So
So,
we would have to perceive it in a different way than touching it.
mhm. So it's like, I always hear that story. I don't always hear it, but I've heard a story multiple times about when the conquerors came to the shores of South America. One of the reasons that they were able to come and conquer is because they said that the people couldn't see them, because for whatever reason, their minds were just not acclimated to their existence, so they just couldn't see them based on that. So then it becomes a question. I guess for me, the question is that in some cases, in terms of frequency and density, uh, does it become necessary, or can it be possible that what was not actually within the dense frequency that we could interact with um, will become dense and able to interact with once we become in a mental frequency agreement that it exists?
Short answer, I would say, I would think yes, because if much like people, obviously on the red side of the spectrum, there are people who can see beyond that boundary, right? So there are people who say that they can see auras, right? Lots of people say they can see auras. So they can see obviously beyond the boundary that way. In much the same way, you have people who say they do Reiki or energy healing or energy manipulation. They're interacting with the chi or the aura in a way that other people don't perceive. They can't see what's happening, but that person can perceive what's happening. So, but something that you hit on that really made me think, because, I was talking about how the sun is changing and the aurora borealis doing what it's doing. Is it possible that it's literally going to shift into us being able to interact with entities that we heretofore had not been able to see or perceive? Maybe the shifts that are happening are going to make it that way, to where we have the ability to have that interaction. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. That's an interesting question. I mean, because you have people who, because I know there's a book called by Maladoma Somé. He's from Africa. I forgot the name of the book, but he's like a shaman of sorts or whatever. and he talks about how in Africa, it was commonplace at one point, you know, for them to see, beings and interact with beings, to go in and out of portals, like they could see, like, okay, there's the door to go
Mm-hmm.
to another world, like they could see those things there,
Mm-hmm.
probably where other people, when they came there, they couldn't see. But I'm thinking, okay, does that coincide with what I'm saying too? Is that okay, because of the mental framework of the people there, they're able to see and interact, where other people, not only can they not interact, they can't see it as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it could be based on that. Like, if you're if your section of the electromagnetic spectrum that you can see, if you as a people were shifted where you have more of that purple side, so you can see portals, you can see energy, you can interact with energy, those kind of things. If the whole thing shifts, then these people who are like low density energy, then you wouldn't be able to see or perceive them. That's deep. Sorry. I do want to point out Timekeeper said they have to have universal consent or something like that. Something about consent. Yeah, that's what he's talking about for karma. Like, because have you guys ever wondered how governments or people can get away with doing the heinous things they do? And then we're like, why do I get my karma right away? Come, I don't get away with shit. And so what I've heard is that that the government created Hollywood, which CIA, those papers have come out too. The CIA does have something to do with Hollywood, that they created this to, if they put it out and people watch the media and do nothing about it, then they have your implied consent to do what they're doing. And so they get no karma for doing the heinous things that they do, the infamous they. All right, I see Adrian's here. I'm going to bring him up. Hi, Adrian.
Hey, how we doing?
Well, good. We're being weird.
Yeah, I see. Um, so, a question from the normie camp. Actually, my friend Stacy is watching the broadcast right now, and she is sent me a message and said that since she has a rare cancer that's attacking her optic nerve on her left eye, whenever she covers up her right eye, she actually sees and perceives some faces in that type of demon face syndrome. Like, could that be another, and she's just going off of what it is you described, right?
Mhm.
Um, but, anyway, she wanted to ask the question, so I'm asking it for her because she's being a chicken shit, so whatever.
What was the medical condition of the eye again, you said?
She has a rare cancer that's attacking her optic nerve. I can't speak today.
I would think in a way, much like we just talked about, it shifts, right? Like, it does something. This demon face syndrome does something to expand that barrier of the visible light spectrum of what we can see and perceive. It does something on the red end where it expands. So, I some kind of outside influence. So it does make me think, we've already talked some conspiracy theories, but there are conspiracy theories that there are things that are blocking our DNA, that are blocking our senses, that are, that it's frequencies that the infamous they put out, or things that they put to us that blocks things. And so maybe in a way, there were people that had brain tumors and cancer, and your friend Stacy has cancer, and all those things are terrible. but there's something about interacting with it that opens that spectrum. But I would say, Stacy, after reading the article, see if you can get glasses with a green lens, or even both of them green lens, and see if that doesn't help. Because again, who wants to see those things, whether they're actually there or not there? Nobody wants to go through their day trying to see that. But there's just something with that, something interacting with the vision of the person opens that up in some way.
No, I want those glasses. I want to see the demons.
I
Anyway,
know.
but I'm out of here.
Okay. Thank you, Adrian.
Yep.
Okay. So Leon says Moses and Elijah and Jesus, haha, appeared on a mountain at the same time, but at a different time. So was it all the same entity? I think that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. Yeah, people don't get in an uproar about it. That's giving consent. Timekeeper says that. Yeah, that's the kind of the prevailing thought. Indigo Flow says probably because there are higher, darker forces behind the governments. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I think
So
YouTube.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think YouTube would do more than just keep messing with my mute button if I got into a lot of that. Oh, you know what? I have put some stuff on my Patreon. So I may put some stuff on my Patreon. Oh, Stacy. Hi, Stacy. She says the cancer is attacking her optic nerve, retina, and vitreous floor. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like I did not look up what specific part of the eye perceives. Well, I mean, it would have to be all of it, right? Like, because all of our vision has to do with the electromagnetic spectrum. So it would have to be all of it in conjunction. But I'm sorry to hear about that. Hi, Prime BA. Thank you for coming in.
And
Okay.
Maggie, too, you might know about these terms. And I learned about these terms years ago, agnosia and aphasia, right? So you know that in order to have our experience, there's a lot of actual stimuli that the mind actually has to block out to be able to live in the world that we live in, because otherwise you would just be, it almost like you would just be in a and everything would just be a blur.
Right, there'd be sensory overload all the time.
Yeah, and you actually couldn't see. So there's a lot of things that we have to block out, and so that goes to the mental aspect too, as well.
Which may have to do with, like Stacy said, it's attacking her nerve. It may have something to do with the nerves, and so because the nerves are bringing that information to the computer part of the brain to decode, right, and to tell us. Real quick, Leon says, wow, if it's the nerve, that's total interference to your brain. Lord, think about when your HDMI card goes bad while attempting to watch TV. Oh, cord. Yeah. But you also got me thinking about, I'm going away on the woo-woo track. I'm going to let it go. Of course, Stacy. Okay, Indigo says, vitreous, not familiar with the term, but it looks like it comes from the same root word as to glass. I believe, Stacy, correct us if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the fluid that it's the jelly, the fluid that's in the eye. I could be wrong, but that was my thinking. Okay, so it looks like people were definitely interested in Maggie going down the rabbit hole with this kind of stuff. I will definitely do it again. Ian, I appreciate you coming up. Adrian, I appreciate you coming up. Stacy, thank you for commenting. It's great to see you in here. This gives us plenty to think about, but I'm sure there's more things that are going to come out. I've thought for a while to talk about some of the Gateway Project because it is mind control. And so it does have to do with mental health and those kind of things. So that may be something I present. But again, YouTube, I'm just a silly woman. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is all for entertainment. It's all just being silly. We're all just being silly. None of this is real. Okay. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Sunday.
Hey, thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.